Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Friday, January 31st, 2025. I'm David Menzies and my co-host. Well, let me tell you a bit about my co-host, shall I? Do you know, folks, today is National Gorilla Suit Day, and I asked my co-host if she was going to celebrate it with me, and she said, "You're not going to make a monkey out of me." She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. And Sheila, before you say anything, because it is National Gorilla Suit Day, I've got Olivia to play a little excerpt of one of the most awesome pieces of music of all time. It's Rick Dees and his usual cast of idiots doing Discorilla. I say if the Smithsonian Institute in Washington wanted to get an example of peak cheesiness in the 70s, it is this video. Check it out, folks. Rick D singing Discorilla. That's about all I can take on an empty stomach. But, Sheila, look at the size of those lapels, for one thing. There's a part of the video. Pardon me?
You can take flight. You need an air traffic controller with those lapels.
Unbelievable. And those stupid big 8 paws, because you know what, kids? You don't know how good you have it with CGI. I mean, that's what we had to put up with.
That was the best we could do.
It was. And now, geez, I remember 1994, I went to Jurassic Park. I almost jumped out of my seat. I thought that was a real T-Rex coming out of the screen at me. And Sheila, one last thing on National Gorilla Suit Day. It is my dream. Well, one of my dreams, if I ever win Lotto 649 FU money, it's to buy a Batmobile. The second dream is to hire 500 people. I'll pay them $1,000 an hour. They will be in professional gorilla suits. We'll go to Young Dundas Square. I'll rent it for 3 or 4 hours and get Rick Dees out of retirement to sing Discorilla on an endless loop. And then we'll just go running down Yonge Street, terrifying people. Or maybe Torontonians would probably be immune to people in gorilla suits, or even gorillas on the streets these days. Who knows? But anyways, that is my dream, Sheila Gunn Reid.
You are a strange and unusual man, David Menzies. It's also, I'm actually shocked that you didn't pick the fact that it's National Fun at Work Day. And every day is fun when I get to work with you, David Menzies. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not being smug. Don't read anything into my tone there. But it's also National Hug an Economist Day. And we have a far left-wing economist trying to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And today he made an early morning announcement. I say early morning because it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, Alberta time, when he said that he's going to scrap the carbon tax. Mr. Mark Carney, the guy who complained that the Canadian carbon tax was not high enough, advocates for a global carbon tax, says that he is going to do away with the carbon tax that he has advised the Liberals on for the better part of half a decade and do something slightly different. So he's going to get rid of the consumer carbon tax and replace it with another carbon tax.
Exactly.
And he's going to move it upstream. And so it's not directly coming out of your pocket, but it will be built into the supply chain. So he's just moving it upstream, and you'll still get hit with it. The question is, how much money will you save? The answer is nothing.
It's a shell game. And Sheila, while DEI, thank goodness for the election of Donald Trump, it's on its way out. And of course, just for simple market share purposes, companies are having their come to Jesus moment that might not be a good idea to hire a transvestite or what have you to market something that appeals to a macho demographic. But some companies that are supposedly getting rid of their DEI programs, yeah, they are, but they bring in some other kind of whiz-bang initialism, which is DEI. So you got to really watch these cats. I say that in relation to Carney. There will be some other kind of, climate-tied tax or levy. And to your original question,
and sustainable goals, it'll be ESG or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. So you got to be very careful. And to your original query about why you were surprised I did not mention Have Fun at Work Day, I was originally going to pursue that, and I went over to one of our employees here at Rebel News headquarters, and she reminded me that Me Too is still in effect. Anyway, take it away, Sheila. What are we trying to do here?
What are we trying to do here? Part of my job is just try to keep us on YouTube. But But this is the Rebel News live stream. It's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or the first work day of the week, Wednesday and Friday, wherein we talk about the news of the day completely unscripted. Are you picking that up by now? And it gives us a chance to interact with you directly. So if you are watching us on the censorship platform of YouTube, thank you for sticking it out there. We realize that there are 1.7 million sets of your eyeballs there, and you prefer to watch us there. So we appreciate that. We continue to broadcast there, but there are some things that we cannot talk about on YouTube. So if you want the full uncensored version of Rebel News, and you want to be able to support the work that we do here at Rebel News out of the goodness of your heart, because you believe in the little network that could, head on over to Rumble. The user interface is a lot similar to what YouTube has, so it's very similar to what you're already accustomed to, and they allow you to support our work through something called a Rumble Rant. That's their paid chat. If you leave us one of those on today's show, and if it's over the $5 US cutoff, we are obligating ourselves to read it on air, but don't let that be the bar for entry. As I say, every time I host the show, we frequently read the chats that fall under that, or even the free chats if they're interesting or funny. We do our best to make time for you because you make time for us. But David, I'm letting you know right now, I sort of have a hard stop at about 12:15 our time, so we can't go too late today.
Bless you, Sheila. I'm in a similar boat.
Okay, perfect.
So without further ado, as they say, why don't we get to the thing that's on everyone's minds? December 24th is Christmas Eve. January 31st this year is what? Potentially Tariff Eve.
Yep.
Tomorrow is one of the dates floated. Although, Sheila, didn't get a lot of publicity, but I heard Danielle Smith interviewed on the radio about 2 weeks ago, and she was adamant that Trump misspoke about the deadline. She said it was April 1st. Evidently, she saw something, I think, in writing, but she was saying February 1st is wrong. But whether it's February 1st, April 1st, we think they're potentially coming, and even that's not a certainty. But why don't we get right to President Trump himself talking about the 25% tariff on Canadian goods that he says is indeed coming. Let's check it out.
We'll be announcing the tariffs on Canada and Mexico for a number of reasons. Number one is the people that have poured into our country so horribly and so much. Number two are the drugs, fentanyl, and everything else that have come into the country. And number three are the massive subsidies that we're giving to Canada and to Mexico in the form of deficits. And I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico. And we will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time.
It will be part of that, because we get oil from Canada.
Oil is going to have nothing to do with it as far as I'm concerned. Oil has nothing to do with it.
Mr. President.
Sheila, here's where I weigh in, even now on potentially the 11th hour. Is this a valid threat that tariffs are going to be coming, that they will be 25%, regardless of the date? Or is this a ploy by President Trump? This is the man who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, to leverage Canada, to do a pressure play, a power play, to get things that he wants. Put another way, Sheila, a week Sunday will be the Super Bowl. It is the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. On paper, I think the Philadelphia Eagles have a better team. But here's the deal. Would anyone right now in the right mind bet against the Chiefs? So I'm not placing a wager on either of those teams. I wouldn't bet for or against this. Your thoughts?
I think Trump is serious about the tariffs. I think Alberta's going to escape them, by the way.
Good.
And yeah, I mean, one part of this economy has to stay afloat. If you people want nice things, Albertans have to continue to work. But I mean, the ball is really in our court. Why? Why are we headed to a tariff war when all we had to do is secure the border and deal with the trafficking of humans, guns, and drugs back and forth. And it's not one way, it's going back and forth. And we have become a bit of a net exporter of terrorism these days, thanks to Justin Trudeau's out of control immigration and his failure to vet these people who are coming into our country and then staging terror plots against our American friends. We haven't been the best of neighbors lately. And all we had to do was do something that would be in the best interests of Canadians. And we are, for some reason, unwilling to do those things.
But Sheila, you're kind of making my point. On the border, for example, your province, my province, the federal government, they have invested several millions ever since the announcement of potential tariffs. So there is traction at long last. I mean, they should have done it years ago, of course, even for our own domestic security. So just the whiff of the mention of a tariff coming has got them going. And maybe what Justin Trudeau should do, because I know this is a big bugaboo when it comes to Canada and so many other countries in the NATO umbrella, is putting our fair share of our GDP into NATO funding. Trudeau announced that we will go up to the appropriate level by 2032. No, that's 7 years from now. Not a chance. I think a bold statement by the Trudeau Liberals to ward off these tariffs is to proactively say, Mr. Trump, starting this year, we are going to contribute X amount of our GDP to our NATO obligations. And so should we, Sheila. I mean, why should all the European countries and everyone else in NATO expect America to do the heavy lifting on defending their continent?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Let's actually move ahead to, because Danielle Smith sort of talks about this a little bit later on, about the things that we could do to signal to Trump if we were willing to do them. However, as you've seen, Justin Trudeau has appointed a bunch of anti-oil lunatics to and anti-Trumpers to negotiate with the Trump administration.
Oh, no.
Again, not as, what, required reading with the Trudeau cabinet should be The Art of the Deal. But I bet absolutely none of them have read it or even listened to a portion of the audiobook. They refuse to know who they're dealing with and to learn. But Trump says his decision for tariffs on Canadian oil isn't yet final. And this is why I think we're not going to get tariffed, is because he mentions the price. And we sell at a price cheaper than what they can produce because of our forced monopoly, I think it's called, with the Americans, because Justin Trudeau won't allow export pipelines. So we don't have world price. We have one foreign buyer. It's the Americans. And so we have to sell at an absolute fire sale price. So let's listen to what Trump has to say on that.
Tariffs on Canada and Mexico, 25%. That's coming on Saturday? That's coming on the first Saturday. But no oil tariff, no oil tariffs. No, I don't. Well, I didn't say that. You said that. No. Well, I don't want to misinterpret. No, we may or may not. We're going to make that determination probably tonight on oil. Yeah, because they send us oil. We'll see. It depends on what the price is. If the oil is properly priced, if they treat us properly, which they don't. Look, Mexico and Canada have never been good to us on trade. They've treated us very unfairly on trade. And we will be able to make that up very quickly because we don't need the products that they have. We have all the oil you need. We have all the trees you need, meaning the lumber. We have more than almost anybody in those two categories. In oil, we have more than anybody, and we don't need anybody's trees. We have to free up some of the tree areas that we have. We have great lumber in this country. We have to free them up environmentally, which I can do very quickly. But we don't need what they have. And for us to be subsidizing Canada to the tune of $175 billion a year and subsidizing Mexico to the tune of $250 billion, $300 billion a year. And Mexico is a method of China sending in its product. And with China, I'm also thinking about something because they're sending fentanyl into our country. And because of that, they're causing us hundreds of thousands of deaths. So China is going to end up paying a tariff also for that. And we're in the process of doing that. we'll make that determination what it's going to be. But China has to stop sending fentanyl into our country and killing our people.
Golly, Sheila, don't you wish we could really speed up the Liberal leadership campaign and anoint Chrystia Freeland? Because according to her, Trump is afraid of her.
Right. Right. I don't know. I'm slightly afraid to get too close to her. She seems like she's got some sort of crisis happening at all times. She's just always just gyrating and freaking out. But Trump says something there that's not entirely true. First of all, they don't have more oil than anybody in the world. That's not true. Canada has the third largest proven reserves, more than the United States. And American refineries right now are the ones that are being fed by Canadian oil are fitted to take heavy oil. And so you can get heavy oil right now from 3 places. The Americans can access it, generally speaking, from 3 places. Venezuela, and I doubt they're going to want that.
Nope.
They have an oil field in Utah that has heavy oil, although it is not even remotely anywhere near scale. Or we've got a ton of it we'd love to sell you for next to nothing from Alberta. So you've got American refinery jobs that are at risk if you don't take Canadian oil, right? And also, if you don't have that supply and you don't have those refineries going, and the price of fuel jumps, $1 a gallon in the Midwest, Trump doesn't want that. He said, if it's priced right and they're treating us fairly. Well, we are doing that. And I think that's his signal that we are going to escape those tariffs.
Folks, when it comes to oil, Sheila is my go-to gal. She just, everything you want to know about oil, Sheila Gunn-Reid knows.
Well, no, I just pay attention. I just pay attention. I'm from Alberta. My family's in the oil patch. So, if he wants to protect American workers, so do I. And by protecting American workers, you also protect Canadian workers by and large here in the West. And so I think because he mentioned he's concerned about, if it's priced fairly, well, we're selling it at a reduced rate. It's obviously priced fairly. I think that's his tip of the hat that our oil and gas will likely escape the tariffs that Doug Ford is, I guess, welcoming upon himself because he cozied up to Justin Trudeau.
Well, he's going to fight back by banning Kentucky bourbon. So
right.
Take that, America.
And catch up from his own riding.
Unbelievable. No, Sheila, we talked about tomorrow, February 1st, and then I mentioned what Premier Smith said. It's really April 1st. But I see Olivia's put up something, breaking news. U.S. imposed tariffs may be delayed until March 1st, so that we have the third date of potential tariffs. Do you think, just based on what you said earlier about oil and the idea that this might adversely affect American jobs, which certainly Donald Trump does not want to do. Do you think maybe they're kind of rethinking strategy as they do a deep dive into potential harm for the American economy and Americans due to tariffs?
I think there might be some of that. Now, oil is really the thing that they cannot magically I appreciate Donald Trump's idea of drill, baby, drill. Look, I love that philosophy. I want that for us too. But there's just not time. Like Biden released the strategic reserve, right? Yeah. So they don't have a buffer right now to deal with the potential of tariffing Canadian oil into the country. They just don't have a buffer. So and there's no possible way they can retrofit refineries in a month. It's just not going to happen. I'm not sure. Maybe there's some movement on the file of appointing a border czar. We'll get to that in a second. It's an idea being floated by Danielle Smith, who has the ear of the administration. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Maybe Trudeau is coming to his senses. I highly doubt that, but we'll see. We've got a video from Charlie Kirk on Jesse Waters, who is a big fan of David Menzies. And the reason he is, who they're talking about the tariffs and why they think Trump would impose them.
We were just joking upstairs. Now there's a trade war against Mexico and Canada. And any other news day, this would be top line. And this is just deep down in the show. How do you think this impact is going to play out on the economy?
Well, look, I trust the president's negotiation ability completely. Understand that many of these companies want to actually do business here in America. And so to avoid the tariff, re-domicile your manufacturing here to America to onshore these jobs. Look, I think that is when it comes to immigration, using the tariffs as a negotiating tactic to get Mexico to come to the table is brilliant. And I think the president using tariffs in the way he has to encourage manufacturing to come back to this country has been long overdue. We used to fund the entire federal government with tariffs. We used to fund all of our goods and services that we had through tariffs. In fact, I love the president's idea of the external revenue service. Get rid of the internal revenue service. Let's start actually taxing the rest of the world. And we're able to do this as the world superpower, as the incumbent economic power, because everyone wants to do business here. It's one thing if you're Portugal. It's one thing if you're Spain. It's another thing we're the United States of America because people want to come here. This will result in trillions of dollars of more investment and capital coming into our country.
Yeah, here, get rid of the Internal Revenue Service, or here the Canadian Revenue Agency. Because, Sheila, I don't know if they got the memo, but income tax allegedly was a temporary measure to fund the First World War efforts. More than 100 years later, what are we defining as
manufacturing to the United States? Because Justin Trudeau had a similar effect, but in reverse on the Canadian oil patch. He acted like a scarecrow standing there, and like companies that wanted to fly in and park some money and do some investment, he's like, get out of here. And they left. He had completely the opposite philosophy. Out of the corner of my eye, I was like, I had a list somewhere because I did a story on this a long time ago. Houston Oil and Gas and Canada headquartered to the United States. Kinder Morgan, major pipeline company, exits the Canadian market. Trident shut its doors. Shell sells their stake in CNRL. And then that was from 2020 when I did that story. And since then, Total left. They sold their Canadian assets, I think, to ConocoPhillips and Cenovus, maybe. So it's funny how these companies just fled. I think it's like over $600 billion in oil and gas investments just left under Justin Trudeau, and nobody blinked an eye. And in the United States, Trump is saying, enough of companies manufacturing outside of the United States and then selling back into the American markets. Those are American jobs. They should stay here. It's completely the opposite of what's unfolded in Canada, and nobody seems to think there's any sort of problem.
By the way, Sheila, Kinder Morgan, are they the people that make those nice little chocolate eggs with a little surprise inside?
Yes, that's a very Toronto thing to say, David. Exactly.
And by the way, since we're talking about international trade wars, I stand to be corrected, but I believe those are not allowed for sale in the U.S. due to potential choking hazards. So at least they can't threaten stopping the Kinder eggs because they're already not going stateside anyways. So how do you like that?
Right. We've got a clip from Jagmeet Singh.
Oh no.
So he said that he wasn't going to bring the government down a couple of days ago. Now he's saying something different. He's all flip-flop Singh. He said his party will back a non-confidence vote when Parliament resumes March 24th, but he's still calling for retaliatory tariffs. Who knows? He'll change his mind by Monday again, as long as he got his pension and I forget which thing that he's blackmailing the government for this time. It was pharmacare and dental care, and I forgot the new one. But as long as he just continues to blackmail the government, he doesn't care what happens to hundreds of thousands of Canadian jobs.
Yeah, so I want to be really clear on this. we are still going to be voting against the government at the end of March. But there's 2 months before that happens. And in those 2 months, if there's anything we can do to support workers, first and foremost, and to fight back against these tariffs against us, let's do it. So absolutely, we need retaliatory tariffs. I've said that. I think anyone running for prime minister needs to commit to that. On top of that, I've said, let's look at other things as well. We can cut off the flow of critical minerals. We know the United States needs Canada. We're the only reliable source of critical minerals. And it's also going to hit Donald Trump's buddy, Elon Musk, where it counts, because he needs those minerals for the batteries in his car plants. So let's be very serious about fighting back, but let's also put in place protection for these workers.
You know, Sheila, I know I'm going off on a tangerine here, but, you know, Lady Menzoy brought this to my attention a couple of days ago. Why is it this week we saw Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, and Jagmeet Singh all wearing gray sweaters? Is there some sort of a gray camp? I mean, I know Justin Trudeau wore his back to front, but is there some kind of a message going on there, some kind of subliminal thing?
Well, we talked about this on the show Wednesday, as ladies do, about fashion. Yeah, I'm real fashionista. But my friend Lisa had some comments about it. Those are all like $500 gray cashmere sweaters. It's the progressive gray globalist sweater of the Davos man elite. I think it's like the uppity, snobby version of that brown tunic that they wear in North Korea, I think.
Well, by the way, I love Lise. I saw that live stream. You and her did so well. She's a gem. We got to get her back ASAP.
Yeah, look at the gray sweaters. They're all wearing them. They're all wearing them. They're cashmere. I think they're about $500.
But you know, okay, I subscribe to the, you know, idea of coincidence, but it just seems a little weird, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's no like gray color campaign for a certain cancer or, you know, what have you. No. So, you know, or is this the top fashion trend for men in the winter right now, to have a sweater and make it gray?
Men here wear insulated coveralls. So I don't know. I don't know what the fancy pants globalist man wears these days, but their color palette is as bleak as the Canadian economy.
Yes.
It's funny how Jagmeet Singh, I care about Canadian jobs. He's willing to sacrifice all those mining jobs in Northern Ontario, Northern Saskatchewan. He doesn't care about those people. And he seems to forget that Elon Musk is a Canadian. Successful Canadian. If his politics were on the left, he would be celebrated, right? He would be just a hometown hero. A la Mark Carney, I guess, but he's not, because he believes in free speech and leaving people alone.
Yeah, and you know, I got to tell you, Sheila, going back to the inauguration day, when people thought he was making a Nazi salute, if I was Elon Musk, anyone that reported that, as a matter of fact, I think he has one hell of a defamation case. You know, this is a big friend to Israel, and the idea of an outreached arm being a Sieg Heil Hitler salute, it is outrageous. But I'm just bringing this up because it shows you the depths they will sink to when they villainize a guy. Do we have that, Olivia, with the okay, it's a very quick clip, folks. You know, and he's not doing. He's caught up in the emotion of the matter. And you know, Sheila, I remember, I think it was our very first Rebel Live event where we had those in the media who came in covertly to report, and they were saying people in the audience were doing the Nazi salute, but these were devout Christians.
They were raising their hands in prayer.
Exactly, and somehow that's Sieg Heil. It's so shameful. And by the way, going back a decade ago when Elon Musk was rolling out the first generation all EV Teslas, he was the darling of the left. He's saving the planet, right? Mm-hmm. What happened, in the immortal words of Fred Willard?
Well, and who does this really help? The actual Nazis? You know, like the people who actually truly believe these things, when you can just lump in conservatives who are
Right.
caught up in the moment with the worst people on the face of the earth, it actually waters down the sting of that word and
Yeah.
what it means. And
And-
it normalizes them to some extent.
And meanwhile, we have new age Nazis every
Right.
weekend dressing up as Sinwar, displaying swastikas. I'm not kidding you, folks. And the media is not interested in that.
Yeah. Let's go to this video of Premier Smith rightly passing along some good advice. She should start charging for this. Calls on the Trudeau Liberals to urgently appoint a border czar to work with the U.S. on border security. She says she's convinced after speaking with U.S. officials, including President Trump, that this is the most important first step in avoiding tariffs. Like, she's the one that's speaking to Trump. He's telling her, this is what you need to do. And she can't get anybody to listen to her. Let's watch this.
Today, U.S. President Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, Howard Lutnick, stated during his confirmation hearing that, quote, if we are your biggest trading partner, show us the respect, shut your border. This is a separate tariff to create action from Mexico and action from Canada. As far as I know, they are acting swiftly, and if they execute it, there will be no tariff. And if they don't, then there will be. Let me say it again. The one thing that we can do this week, in just the next couple of days, to have the best chance to avoid tariffs is to show clear and unequivocal action to secure the border. This should start with the appointment of a Canadian border czar to work with the new American border czar to jointly crack down hard on fentanyl and illegal migrants. Is this likely to end the threat of tariffs entirely? I don't think so. I think there'll be other things that we will need to work on, and we will do so. But I am convinced, after speaking with dozens of elected U.S. representatives, administration officials, and the president himself, that this is the most important first step. Today, I reiterated this to the premiers, Minister LeBlanc, Minister Wilkinson, and Prime Minister Trudeau, and I hope it is acted on by the end of this week before February 1st.
She's just doing so well, eh, Sheila?
She mentioned what needed to happen 5 times.
Yep.
5 times in that short clip, because she's trying to make somebody understand.
Yep.
This is the thing we need to do. And why wouldn't we do it? We have a problem with illegal migration in this country. We have a problem with fentanyl coming across our border. They just had a major stop in Swift Current yesterday, I believe. People from Calgary trafficking fentanyl through southern Saskatchewan and up into Regina. A couple weeks ago, they stopped enough fentanyl in southern Alberta. Guess where that came from? That would be enough to kill every man, woman, and child in this province. Major drug busts in BC, $500 million. At fentanyl super labs, we've got a problem. We've got a real problem. Those drugs are going back and forth across the border. I'm also concerned that safe supply from BC is ending up on the streets of the United States, killing Americans, the same way it's ending up on the streets of Alberta, killing Albertans. Why wouldn't they deal with this? Except because they want to be adversarial goofballs with the Trump administration, because they can't campaign against Polyev. So they have to campaign against another boogeyman.
You know, you're so right. And that is the rationale for Doug Ford calling this ridiculous election in Ontario, Sheila. He wants to run against somebody that's not on the ballot, namely Donald Trump.
Yep.
And the idea, the ostensible policy reason, I need a mandate, Sheila, supermajority government, and it's in place at least until June 2026. That's like a year and a half. That's an eternity in politics. So, you know, compared to what Danielle Smith is doing, Ford is fumbling the ball. Smith is spiking it in the end zone.
Yeah, we should show this real quick before we go to an ad break and an ad read. We've got 51 Alberta sheriffs. And so for those people who say this is reactionary to the election of Trump, it's not. This has been in the works for several months because these 51 Alberta sheriffs had to be trained first. So this is something that it's been part of Alberta's drug strategy, right? So we ramped up treatment. Now we're dealing with supply. 51 sheriffs, 4 patrol dogs ready to track and take down threats, 10 cold weather drones for 24-hour surveillance, 4 narcotic analyzers to stop deadly drugs in their tracks, and more tools to keep Alberta safe. And she has been, again, trying to communicate this to the Trump administration. She's had Fox News at the border this week and Fox Business at the border this week. We know that's the preferred network of Donald Trump, that Trump people watch it. And so that's what she's been doing to try to say, look, maybe Trudeau isn't dealing with this. Maybe he isn't appointing a border czar, but we are doing everything we can to make sure that we keep Albertans and Americans safe.
So Sheila, aren't you kind of making my point that I made right at the outset of the show, which is this is a pressure tactic just to get us to do the things he wants us to do, namely border security?
Sure, yes, but I think there's a or else attached to this. So I don't think it is an empty threat. That's what I'm saying. I think unlike Jason Kenney's strongly worded letters to Justin Trudeau all the time when Justin Trudeau overstepped into provincial jurisdiction, there's an or else attached to this threat from Donald Trump. So, I mean, all he's asking us to do is the right thing by Canadians and Americans. And for some reason, our government will not. I think we all know the reason. I think that or else is very real.
If you were to wager $1, Sheila, do we wake up tomorrow morning to finding out that the tariffs are a fact of life or not? So I'm basically asking Eagles or Chiefs?
I think we'll know March 1st. I think you got a month reprieve is what I'm saying.
Okay, so that breaking news is
I think
legit.
that's probably legit. And I think Trump will point to the things that Alberta is doing, that Quebec is doing, that Ontario is finally doing, to say, look, we're seeing movement on these issues. We would like to see more by March 1st.
And, on that topic, going back to Ford, should he not have at least waited, whether it's Feb 1, March 1, or April 1, to find out if the tariffs are actually going to be a matter of fact before jumping the gun? This is pure political opportunism. It's
you know
despicable.
What? I'm going to say I'm wrong, because that breaking article has been completely debunked by Carolyn Levitt, the absolute mainstream media eviscerator. She says that there's basically if Trudeau doesn't shut his stupid mouth, we're in for a world of hurt in the next 24 hours. So let's watch.
Wow.
Friends at Reuters are reporting that the president has made a decision on the Canada and Mexico tariffs, but that they won't actually be implemented until March 1st. I was wondering if you could confirm that and talk through some of the president's thinking.
I saw that report and it is false. I was just with the president in the Oval Office, and I can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago, continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
The president yesterday said that last night he was planning to discuss whether an exemption would be made on oil imports. Do you have any information on what decision he made there, or will there be exemptions at all offered under this?
I don't have an update or readout for you on the exemptions, but those tariffs will be for public consumption in about 24 hours tomorrow, so you can read them then.
That's curious, Sheila. 25% for Mexico and Canada, 10% on China. I'm trying to understand the dynamics there, because it was only a few months ago we went to a Pierre Poilievre press conference in Hamilton at a steel plant, and he was talking about for products such as steel, EV batteries. If memory serves, he was talking in the neighborhood of 25 to 50% tariffs against Chinese imports of those commodities. Why do you think it's so low for China?
I have no idea. I don't know. I think maybe, the damage that tariffing those imports would do to the American economy, maybe just because of the scale of those imports. I'm not sure, but I think Ontario should hunker down. I think you're in for a world of hurt, and I think you should hang it squarely around Justin Trudeau's neck like a millstone, and maybe tie Doug Ford to it also, because it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's avoiding a self-inflicted wound for the American people. I mean, put another way, Sheila, go into a Walmart, go into a Dollarama. What would you say? Maybe 95% of the merchandise is sourced from China. So imagine if it's 10, 25, 50% more, what that's going to do to your purchasing power. It's so prevalent. I mean, I remember it was many years ago. I think it was a journalist with a Kansas City newspaper, but the assignment was she had a family and she was going to endeavor to live an entire year without needing to buy anything made in China. You know what, Sheila? She threw in the towel at the 2-week mark. It was impossible.
Yeah, I mean, they're so pernicious. And the global elites have structured it that way.
Yep.
That they punish the Western economies for developing their economies, and they allow unrestrained economic development in China, because China, even though it is the world's second largest economy, is still classified as a developing country by the United Nations, which means that they get all these
and you mark my words, Sheila, in our lifetime, the next battlefield is going to be imports. It is going to be cars manufactured in China that can finally pass the crash test and the safety benchmarks. And in fact, that's why you saw last month, seemingly out of the blue, Nissan and Honda merging, two Japanese car firms, because the real elephant in the room coming down the pathway is Chinese automobile imports. So keep your eye on that one.
We've got one more clip from this press conference, and this is the one that I was referring to when I mentioned the tariffs and Justin Trudeau running his stupid mouth to the detriment of Canadians. Let's watch this.
Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, said today that if the U.S. imposes tariffs, he will respond and he will not relent until the tariffs are removed. Are we seeing the start of the trade war with Canada?
I don't think so. I think the president is going to implement those tariffs tomorrow, and he will respond to Mr. Trudeau's comments in due time, I am sure.
What type of things have to happen? What does the administration need to see in order to avoid those tariffs?
Well, the tariffs are incoming tomorrow on Canada. And the reason for that is because both Canada and Mexico have allowed an unprecedented invasion of illegal fentanyl that is killing American citizens and also illegal immigrants into our country. In fact, I have more language for you right here. Canada, Mexico, and China, which, as I mentioned, President Trump will implement a 10% tariff on China, have all enabled illegal drugs to pour into America. The amount of fentanyl that has been seized at the southern border in the last 2 years alone has the potential to kill tens of millions of Americans. And so the president is intent on doing this. And I think Justin Trudeau would be wise to talk to President Trump directly before pushing outlandish comments like that to the media.
And 2 points, Sheila. First, even if there is a trade war, which she dismissed, I can tell you one thing. We're going to lose that war, and we're going to lose it bigly. And secondly, let's not forget, tariffs go on and tariffs come off, right? I mean, maybe if Trump sees proactive behavior on our part, then the tariffs are removed. So once again, it's part of a power play right out of the art of the deal.
Olivia says we need to do a Rumble ad, and we have a
Okay.
chat to read, and then I'll leave it up to Olivia whether or not we want to do a Rebel ad or if we want to just keep going with the show.
Sure.
We have about 14 minutes left. But this one is from Truth Social, Trump's social media network. If you're looking for a great place online for news, discussion, and entertainment, then check out Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media website. You'll get breaking news stories and commentary from top media figures. If you want to see Trump's legendary Truth Social posts, then get on Truth Social today. Join a growing community of patriots on a free speech platform designed to avoid censorship and cancellation by big tech. Make your voice heard. Join the movement. Join Truth Social. We've got a chat here from longtime viewer and regular supporter of the show, Ryerson Gary. And he says the United States has invaded more countries, launched more coups, armed more dictators, and trained more terrorists than any empire in history. There's truth to that. The border is an excuse. It's Trump's ego and money. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I don't know if you read the article that Jordan Peterson published the other day in the National Post, the one that sent Andrew Coyne into the vapors, clutching his pearls and causing his bosom to heave in dismay. And basically he said Canada has to offer Alberta something more than America is right now, which is true. But it also detailed all the ways in which we have taken our relationship with the Americans for granted, saying that we have been terrible friends to the Americans. And it is true. Many times in our histories, we have stood together side by side on, as the left says, the right side of history. Well, it's actually true in this case. Yeah, but in recent years, we have been a bit of a problem, and we are. They are living next door to a crack house right now, and they don't like it. If you've had a problem neighbor in your life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so maybe the things that Trump is asking us to do, while they are good for Americans, they're the best thing for Canadians too.
Yeah, and Sheila, and by the way, Ryerson Gary, I appreciate your donation, but I have to disagree with you, my friend. I don't think this is ego-driven, and I don't think it should come as a surprise. Look what Trump ran on. Make America great again. This is part of the process. America first, as in the United States of America, not the North American continent. So the idea that he is implementing policy to reclaim America's lost glory, and if it's at the expense of Canada, Mexico, China, and anyone else, he's going to do it.
Right. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a leader who felt the same way about us? Instead,
exactly.
We've got a leader who is worried about everybody else under the sun. He's worried about trans people in the Horn of Africa and shipping my guns off to the Ukraine to fight Russia. He's got his eye on everybody else except the best interests of Canadians.
Yep.
And that, I think, is the real problem at the root of this.
Yeah, 100%. So why don't you do that read, Sheila?
I did. Where were you 30 seconds ago when I read the ad for Truth Social? Let's go right into.
I'm sorry. Okay. I mixed up. There was some, and then you decided you did a executive decision by killing the Rebel News ad read.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather talk about the news of the day.
100%. Okay, then.
We've got Mark Carney making an announcement very early this morning for me. I was trying to watch it before we had our 8 a.m. staff call. Liberal leadership frontrunner Mark Carney gives a land acknowledgement in Halifax before he goes into blaming Canadians about why we don't embrace his ridiculous carbon tax.
I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The people of the Mi'kmaq Nation have lived on this territory for millennia, and we acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. It is a pleasure to be here in Halifax.
Why?
Well, isn't that kind of de rigueur? Everywhere I go, I see these land acknowledgements. And when I speak to anyone in the Indigenous community. You know what? Less with the acknowledgements and maybe more with like, oh, I don't know, clean drinking water on the
Right.
reserve.
Yeah, I was at a wrestling event with my friend who is Indigenous, and they did like a land acknowledgement
In
before
wrestling?
in wrestling. It's this crazy woke wrestling promotion. Anyways, they also lectured us on not making gendered insults. Anyway, I could feel my friend cringe from beside me.
Wow.
Like when they did that. But you know what? I'm gonna have the Amazon man make a land acknowledgement every time he comes onto my farm. This is the unceded territory of the gun people. We've been it's been unceded since 1903. Like I just when does it end? Anyway, this is just going to be more of the same from Mark Carney. But yeah, there are real things that we could do to advance reconciliation, and this is just virtue signaling. Can we deal with housing? Can we deal with financial transparency on reserve? Basic necessities like drinking water? How about drug treatment on reserve? The feds aren't doing that. We're doing that here in Alberta because we got sick and tired of people dying while waiting for Justin Trudeau to do something. So there are real things that we can help our Indigenous fellow Canadians. That ain't it, brother.
No, that is virtue signaling. And by the way, Sheila, who was Mark Carney making that announcement to? Does he bring his own AV team with him? Because as you know, going back more than a week ago, in Edmonton, he made his announcement, his official announcement, but not before getting law enforcement to frog march independent media out, including our alumnus.
You reminded me of something because he snatched an Indigenous grandmother out of the crowd. Remember? And she didn't really know why she was there or who Mark Carney was. So he did the similar virtue signaling on the same issue in Edmonton. But I guess this time he just did it himself instead of just grabbing someone's random grandma out of the crowd and saying,
I think, was that the one that said somebody told me he's important, I better Google him or something. But the point is, he frog marched the independent media out of the room. On Saturday, I went to cover his presser in the Beaches area of Toronto. And, you know, Sheila, they say misery loves company. I say it ain't so, because this time the independent media and the mainstream media were confined to a frigid sidewalk as Carney made his nothing burger speech. So I'm just curious, who recorded that? Because it seems that all media
It was on CPAC.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a feed on CPAC. I'm just happy he didn't snatch somebody's kukum out of the crowd like he did last time. Let's keep going. Carney blames, you know what? Like Justin Trudeau, it's our fault that we don't like the things that they do to us. And the beatings, I guess, will continue until morale improves. He says he blames us for not understanding the positive impacts of the carbon tax, like the net benefit of having less money in your bank account. But he says it's a divisive issue because we're too stupid to get how smart they are for doing this to us. And we're just so dumb we fell for misinformation.
In the past, you've supported the carbon tax and defended Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's stance on the carbon tax. Why now? Why are you coming out with this now?
Well, I think there's two things, Lindsay. One is that, and that's right, and it's worked. It has had some impact in terms of reducing our emissions, making things more efficient. But as I said in my remarks, and I think certainly colleagues would know and people would know, it has become very divisive. For Canadians, it's the perceptions of the impact, the negative impacts of the carbon tax on households without fully recognizing the positive impacts of the rebate has made this more of a divisive issue. It's been fed by misinformation and lies, quite frankly, by the leader of the opposition. But okay, we are in this situation, and it's important that climate policy has broad buy-in. There's a better way to do things. We've worked on coming up with a better way to do things, which keeps an element of the price on pollution, the most important element, which is the industrial price. And I'll just point out for those who may be interested, that really what we're looking at is almost 90% of the emissions reductions are coming from the industrial side. So a little more than, it depends on the year, but somewhere around 10, 11% coming from households. So we've worked a way where we're going to get greater reductions on the industrial side, some household reductions driven by incentives, the carrot, not the stick, and have those industrial users pay for them. So this is a better, in the end, it's a better solution that builds off of what was there before.
Yeah, the carrot, not the stick. Have you seen the price of carrots lately, Sheila, in part due to the carbon tax? You know what? Here's my feeling. I think Carney and Freeland have created a trap of their own making regarding them distancing themselves from a consumer based carbon tax, because and Carney alluded to it right in his speech there about the positive effects of the rebates. So wait a minute, if you're taking away the carbon tax on consumers, you guys have always been consistent that the majority of Canadians are ahead of the game because of the rebates. Now, if that's the case, don't take away the carbon tax. Aren't you screwing Canadians? Or maybe were you just being a little creative with the mathematics?
Yeah, they can't figure out if they're lying then or lying now. Right? We've got one more from him. He admits, and by the way, you'll note, he says we're getting rid of the consumer carbon tax. So that means the end user tax. But he's just moving it back up the supply chain. And every little bit of that will still get passed along to you, and it will still be cumulative along the supply chain. You're just going to not see it.
Wait a minute, Sheila. Are you saying that the railway companies and the truckers and the stores, they're not going to absorb that carbon tax? They're not going to pass it on? Shockers.
And that's the thing. He really does think Canadians are stupid enough to fall for this misinformation, that we don't understand how running a business works. When you up the tax on something, you only have a little bit of wiggle room. You might be able to absorb a teeny tiny bit so that you don't price your customers away. But if you can't make money, you don't have a business and you have to pass it along. That's how it works. And an economist like Mr. Carney would know that. So he's just standing there lying to people. We've got one more video from him. He admits the carbon tax was too divisive, and he under pressure from Trump and Poilievre, he admits the tax is he actually admits it drives up the cost of gas and home heating, as if we didn't know. But the Liberals have attempted to gaslight us on this for years.
Sheila, I did a video earlier this month about our natural gas bill. The carbon tax is the biggest line item, including the cost of the natural gas on that bill.
I've got a friend who heats with coal, and his coal is like a pittance, and everything else is taxed. Like, Mark Carney thinks that we don't understand how addition works, like basic addition works. And so we need him to explain it to us because we're idiots.
Now, when Pierre Poilievre says we have to choose between fighting climate change and growing our economy, he's lying to us. Canadians have had more than enough of such division and confusion. With Canada now under attack, it is time to come together. And since Canada's current climate policy has become too divisive, it's time for a new, more effective climate plan that everyone can get behind. It's a plan that makes our economy more competitive, it grows good jobs today, and it will grow better ones in the future. Friends, there are literally billions of dollars of investment on the table and millions of jobs at stake. So here's how our new plan works. My government will immediately remove the consumer carbon tax. But we won't stop there. Instead, what we'll do is create a system of incentives to reward Canadians for making greener choices. So it means that you'll no longer have to pay more to fuel your car or heat your home, But when you choose an energy efficient appliance or an electric car or home insulation, you will be rewarded, and we will get the big polluters to pay for it.
Sheila, two things. First of all, do you remember, I might be wrong, but did Pierre Poilievre ever say,
Never once.
yeah, like we have to choose between fighting climate
said that.
change and the carbon? I mean, I don't remember him saying it that way. And so
No.
he put words into the official opposition leader's mouth.
I wish he would say it that way.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. But also, correct me if I'm wrong. This is more in your bailiwick, but Sheila, aren't our emissions less than like 1.8% globally? So when we talk about so it's a scintilla of the problem, and yet the biggest polluters in the world, China, India, they're still putting up old-fashioned coal plants as we
One a
speak.
week.
Yeah.
1 or 2 a week.
So I don't get it.
Well, and also it's his idea that when he says there's billions of dollars of green investment on the table.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Where is it then? Because we just had a carbon tax up the wazoo, and that was supposed to create green jobs everywhere. Where are they? I'm looking. I don't see them. You know what? This sort of make the big polluters pay nonsense does? Remember that list of big companies that I said just evacuated the oil and gas sector for greener pastures in the United States? More of that is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because if you promise the big polluters, you mean the big job creators, that you're going to tax them, they just go somewhere else. They're going to drill America.
Yeah.
Southern Saskatchewan and North Dakota share the Bakken. Now you can do business in Canada where it's more expensive, or you can do business in North Dakota where it's not. You can do business in Alberta, or you can do business in West Texas. And if you've got that kind of adversarial baloney scaring away investment, no matter what we do, they're just not coming here. So, I mean, and Canadians still pay more.
Sheila, capital is extremely fluid, and the people controlling the capital, they'll go to the path of least resistance. That's it. That's all.
Exactly. You know what? Let's move ahead to, we've got one chat here, 2 chats, maybe.
Good.
Yeah, we've got a chat, and then let's go into some. I'm tired of Mark Carney. He is an energy vampire. Wrap up the show. He is. He's so boring. He's insufferably boring, and not in a good way. Like Stephen Harper was boring, and I enjoy it. This is boring, and it just makes me leave my body for an out-of-body experience to escape it for several minutes.
Sheila, I experienced it personally last Saturday when he was at the Beaches event, and the local MP, Nate Erskine Smith. Now, when you call Nate Erskine Smith Mr. Entertainment in comparison to Mark Carney, you know Carney might have a little bit of a charisma problem, but I'll give him credit. Nate had the crowd worked up, and Carney gave about a 5 or 6 minute speech of a complete nothing burger with cheese, and you could literally feel the energy just evaporating out of the room. It was like unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I was critical of Mark Carney just grabbing someone's cookum out of the crowd and having her talk. But I would have listened to that lady talk all day over Mark Carney. Where is she? I want to talk to her. We've got a chat here from Alberta Don. He says there have been more terrorists apprehended at the Canadian border than Mexico's. Trump sees Trudeau passing out fentanyl and other hard drugs. What do we expect? Yes. And then we've got the whole Gazan refugee problem.
Yep.
Coming at us. And, you know, those people see the United States as the great Satan and Israel as the little Satan. And I think he is being proactive in protecting Americans. And that's what he was elected to do. And again, I reiterate, wouldn't it be great if we had somebody who loved us the way Trump loves the American people?
Yeah. And by the way, Sheila, in fairness, let's not forget, thanks to the grotesque mismanagement of the southern border, that's the real problem in America. I understand that Canada is less than 10% of the illegals coming in. More than 90 is through Mexico. Over the last few years, the estimates range from 8.5 million to 21 million. Can you imagine? First of all, that range is outrageous. And who are these people? What do they want? And I would argue, and I hope to God I'm wrong on this, Sheila, but I can't see why dyed-in-the-wool terrorists wouldn't have snuck across the southern border.
Completely.
Yeah, it would be a dereliction of duty if you didn't. I mean, you mean to say I can just walk across and I'm going to be processed, maybe put on a bus to Texas or New York? Yeah, and I am terrified of the idea that right now in America, there are little sleeper cells of terrorists just waiting to pull off the next 9/11. And that's more impetus, I think, for President Trump to round up these people. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. President of Colombia, even if it's on a military aircraft and, not on a 747 and bring them back. And also, Sheila, that incredible announcement, and Trump, I got to tell you, continues to surprise me. Reopening Gitmo Bay to its former glory, 30,000 beds. And those are for the worst of the worst, not just in terms of criminals, but bad character countries that allow them to migrate back to the U.S. And as Trump himself said in his great sense of humor, Gitmo, it's a pretty hard place to get out of, pretty hard.
Yeah. You know what? Good. Yeah. And also, Canada should be tightening up our border for a similar reason, because Trump is going to deport these people, or they're going to flee deportation. Now, where can you flee deportation? You'd probably come to Canada, and I don't want them here either. So we've got a real problem with being a net exporter of terrorism. You don't have to sneak into this country. You can land at Pearson and claim refugee status these days. And so those people could flow into the United States, or the other way around. Fleeing deportation, you could come into Canada as a bad hombre, as Trump says. So there's that too.
Sheila, how come it's never those celebrities that always threaten during a U.S. presidential election? That's it. If he gets in, I'm moving to Canada. Do we even know of one? Certainly not an A-lister, but has there been any celebrities that I know going back to the 60s and 70s, a lot of U.S. draft dodgers came to Canada. I know that for certain. Some of them went on to have nice careers at the CBC. But do you know of anyone of note that's made good on that threat?
Who promised to come to invade Canada as an illegal alien? I don't even care. They can keep Selena Gomez. I don't care. I don't. I'm not even remotely interested. We need less of these people, not more. We've got, let's just finish up on a lighter note.
Yes.
This is what passes for comedy at the state broadcaster. A government comedy is as hilarious and as tasty as government cheese. We've got 2 videos from this hour, has 22 minutes. Let's go to the first one of them parodying Joe Rogan. These people wish they could get Joe Rogan style numbers, but
you got to be kidding.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's superfan Joe Rogan went off on censorship in Canada this week.
If you can't say all those things, which right now you can't do in Canada, you could walk there. It's on the same patch of land as us, and it's because people like that Justin, that these people are leading you on the road to legitimate communism.
Joe, if you can shut down the Capitol and wave F. Trudeau flags for weeks, nobody is censoring your free speech. The only problem you're having with your speech is that you're too stupid to formulate an opinion without swearing every second word. Mr. Rogan, let me now prove to you that we have free speech in Canada while also speaking to you in words you can understand. Joe Rogan is a dickhead.
Sheila, how many censorious bills last year did the Justin Trudeau Liberals table?
Also, you can go to the nation's capital and wave F Trudeau flags, but you can also have your bank account frozen because you did it.
Yeah.
So is it truly free if you face financial ruin if you do it? You idiot. Mark Critch. I had to Google who that was, by the way, because his name is so inconsequential to me. Joe Rogan is a comedian people will pay to see.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we pay to have the unwatchable Mark Critch on the air.
And Sheila, I just want to tell people that Rebel News, the station you're watching now, is a result of our censorious country going back to 2015, when our founder, Ezra Levant, was with the Sun News Network, as I was as well. And we were trying to get a license from the CRTC that would ensure the livelihood of the Sun News Network, which was losing almost $20 million a year at the time. And this was and remember, the CRTC, the ostensible policy reason, folks, it is to promote Canadian content. So Sun News Network, owned by a Quebec company, headquartered in Toronto, bureaus all across Canada, employing, I think, something like 250 Canadians, full-time and freelance. I mean, you couldn't get more Canadian than that, you know. And we wanted the kind of license that specialty channels had, Sheila, that almost half their content was old US sitcoms. And it was denied. The CRTC denied a Canadian-owned news network telling stories, Canadian stories, to Canadians, made by Canadians. And why did they deny it? Oh, here's the rub, folks. They don't have to give a reason. But we know what the reason was. It was political. They could not bear the thought of one right-of-center news network, so they assassinated us. Simple. So whoever that jabroni was on CBC, I want to see him do a commentary on what happened to the Sun News Network a decade ago.
What happened to the Sun News Network is so atrocious when you realize that the background noise in doctors' offices and airports, by which I mean CNN, it has mandatory carriage in this country. So if you get a cable package, you get CNN because apparently it's vital to Canadians. But you couldn't get a Canadian news channel because it had the wrong politics.
Yeah. And, you know, Sheila, that's a very good point. I should point out, in the history of Sun News Network, before it went on the air, before the first show ever was aired, there was already a petition. And I think Margaret Atwood was part of it. And it was, I think it was entitled, if you can believe it, this was supposed to be a slur, Stop Fox News North, right?
Yeah. I remember that. And I was like, I'm interested. Now I want to watch.
I know.
That old crone, Margaret Atwood, doesn't like it. Okay, now I just might think that I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, let's go one more quick message from the boringest people on the face of the earth, by which I mean the comedians at the state broadcaster. And then we'll hit an ad read and we'll wrap it up. So this is them making fun of Danielle Smith, who got over 90% of the support of party members in her very recent leadership review. But anyways, these unwatchable people thought they would make fun of her. And you know what? I'm fine with people making fun of other people. I don't care, whatever, but it should be funny. And it's just not so boring and stale.
Hello, Canada. I know a lot of you feel like I've betrayed you guys and girls and only those two genders. But what was I supposed to do? Turn my back on my best friend? Yeah, that's right. It's official. Donald Trump is my best friend. What can I say? He's my pal, my compadre, my boy, my man, my little orange devil who smells like cheese. Donald and I are incredibly close. I mean, look. That's at least 5 feet apart, and this one's probably closer to 3. So we're pretty freaking close. Sure, some might say threatening to devastate your best friend's economy sounds more like a toxic and abusive relationship. But I ain't one for labels, except commie, enemy of the state, and homosexual. Donald and I are so in sync. I even started going to his barber, and I think he did a beautiful job. Supporting your best friend is crucial. And like I always say, tariffs are just another way to spell friends without the T and the second F and adding an I and also an E and there's an N in there. I don't turn my back on my friends, whether it's the president waging economic war or my college roommate Grace when she fell in love with a rodeo clown at the Stampede. I'm proud to call Donald my best friend. And like a true best friend, I'm willing to wait for him to say it back. This is a great relationship, not only for me, but for Canada. And look, I even started making friendship bracelets for us. This one's for his groping hand. Little tiny hand, very delicate. Might be too big.
You know, Sheila, I was actually watching that with an open mind because
I was trying.
yeah, and you know, she appeared on another sketch in which there was a member of the cast doing a Donald Trump impression, and I'm the umpire behind home plate. I call him as I see him. That impression was spot on. It was excellent. The mannerisms, the speech, everything. But this Danielle Smith character, it's really falling flat. It tells you everything about CBC's ideology when they think they're winning over the room by mocking Danielle Smith for saying there are only two genders, boys and girls, when the vast majority of people in this country would say, yeah, that's exactly so. And also, I want to tell that actress, I don't even know her name, Sheila, but can we somehow send, I don't know, an email to her and say, you know what the definition of a joke is? It's a short story with a humorous climax. I kept waiting for that humorous climax. Did you see it arrive, Sheila?
No, I mean, it was just low-hanging fruit. There was no similarity in any of the mannerisms. It's like they said, make fun of an Alberta woman who is conservative, who has been making the case to Donald Trump, and didn't tell her anything else. It's like she's never even watched a news clip with Danielle Smith. That was so bad. And its greatest crime, besides being just picking the low-hanging fruit, it was not daring or anything like that, was that it just was so boring. Like there was nothing even remotely funny in there. I like you. I tried. I thought, okay, well, I might crack a smile. It was just, I don't know. It was just
And
dumb.
Sheila, you nailed it. That is the cardinal sin. I've always said in this business, in the entertainment business, be good, be bad, be so bad you're good, but never, never be boring. And that was just, you know, the epitome of boredom. It was just this woman ranting on, and none of it was funny. None of it.
Yeah.
And that's a problem when the ostensible reason of this hour has 22 minutes is to be a comedy show.
Right. Where was the comedy?
Yeah.
I mean, Danielle Smith is a smart woman. If you've ever seen her deal with journalists who try to ask her questions about numbers, or they think they really understand and they're going to get her hung up on something, she has the fact right there and she can yank it down. And then in this, they sort of paint her as like dumb and childish when she's anything but. Like it just there are other ways where they could have taken this that maybe could have, I don't know, been funny. It was bad. It was just generally bad.
Well, one last point I've got to make, and it's the double standard, Sheila, because several years ago, after that disastrous trip to India by Justin Trudeau, the Radio Canada, the French version of CBC, this hour has 22 minutes, did a parody of Justin Trudeau in full traditional Indian gear, doing a dance.
Oh.
Even though I don't speak French, it was laugh out loud funny. And what happened? The left lost their marbles, didn't they, Sheila? It was racist. It was cultural appropriation. Excuse me. Everything they depicted in that comedy sketch is what Justin Trudeau did in reality in India.
Yes. Yeah, anyways, they just defend Trudeau at all costs. Let's do this last ad read. We'll wrap the show because I am late for the thing that I needed to do, and I bet you are too. So have you heard of the recent advertising scandal? Let me break it down. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts. The email explicitly states the right-wing culture of Rumble is too polarizing for the blue-collar coffee company. Know your audience. In other words, Dunkin' Donuts has a problem with right-wing culture and wants nothing to do with it or Rumble. There's already a Starbucks, guys. So here's the solution. Stop buying products that don't support you and start supporting brands that support you. The competing coffee brand that we all need to get behind is Rumble's own 1775 coffee. For a limited time, Rumble is offering buy 2 bags of coffee and get one free. Go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Duncan to get this limited time deal. All right. I think that's it. If we
There
don't have
you
any
go.
chats, I think that's the show.
Well, that was an hour and 20, and it flew by like, 22 minutes. Sheila, thank you so much for co-hosting.
Funny
and-
because 22 minutes feels like 3 hours when you're watching it.
Indeed. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And a special thank you to those who made a contribution with those super chats. Just a little housekeeping note. I will be gone all next week and maybe even 2 weeks. As much as Puerto Vallarta looks like a beautiful destination, I will be stuck in our frigid Great Dominion. I am, shall we say, on assignment, not on vacation. So maybe I'll see you next week, or maybe I'll see you in 2 weeks. But yeah, so I will be back, as the saying goes. And in the meantime, folks, thank God it's TGIF. And as always, be safe and be sane.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.